who is Battlefield 4? While there's definitely a lot of happy people with the game, the beta coming to an end, maybe not so happy anymore, I see some concerns brewing that I wanted to bring up and get your guys' thoughts on as well, because I haven't heard at least too much discussion, but I've seen this in the comment section. Obviously, a battle royale is coming for the game. On top of many small maps and a focus on domination, squad deathmatch, team deathmatch, King of the Hill, these fast respawn modes with open classes and just other directions clearly that the game is pulling maybe away from the all-out warfare across the internet. I've seen this idea discussed in many different ways where will Battlefield lose its identity? We even saw that article that reportedly one of the lead developers for the game now, Byron Beatty, who came over from Call of Duty, as well as, of course, Vince Zampella, another ex-Call of Duty legend, as well as even EA before that, now back again, nonetheless, mentioned that they want to, in the next 5 to 6 years, apparently make Battlefield a yearly release title, similar to Call of Duty coming out every single year. And while I'm going to talk about some concerns here, I do think there is some really good news, even specifically for Battlefield 6, that I do want to focus on at the end of this video, so stick around. But overwhelmingly, I do think there is a lot of people that are excited for the game, that do fit the target of what they are picturing here, myself included. I was very hyped. I had a ton of fun on the actual beta myself over the last 2 weekends. And now, after seeing COD's reveal and the comment section of all those videos and posts over there, clearly a lot of people are very hyped for Battlefield. I'll likely have a separate video where we kind of dissect the differences between the games and have a full showdown or comparison on it. But what was definitely a massive outcry of no pre-orders for Battlefield, mass concern before the beta, a lot still going to be waiting for that full release, of course, to see if they can fully deliver past the beta. Probably a good move. We'll see. Satisfaction levels have increased, at least from what they were before. But this is what I've always said, is Battlefield is far more of a niche game, and it really always has been, versus what Call of Duty has been. But then to that point, will it still deliver for that niche and the overall Battlefield nation? So first, let's talk about the Battlefield fans, where you've got destruction, vehicles, weapons, attachments. We have the class roles. If you're running into a tank as a support or an assault, you're running the other way. But we also have problems, or maybe just differences. They're going the opposite direction, seemingly more so this time, from the 128 players and the even more massive all-out warfare that they were going for with 2042's release, seemingly going a lot smaller. Staying true at least to the 64 players on some occasions, but clearly with Rush taking a much smaller role, going down to 12v12, a lot of the maps getting much smaller, at least from what we've seen in the beta so far. In past betas, they gave us just one giant map. In this one, we got to see 4 maps, tons of different modes. And to be fair, it does seem like we still will get very large maps. Operation Firestorm is coming. At least we know that. It looks like Valley will be another one of those very large maps. But even the ones that we did see, the space that was available and the options for flanking seem less, at least in some instances here, until people started getting on the roofs, maybe. There's a lot of different ways that they can tweak the vehicles and everything, but I had so much fun flying in the jet. It honestly felt better than ever, especially being able to free look in third person. The tanks felt so powerful. The overall aesthetic and feel of the game, the expansion, even with the dragging of the bodies, it felt like a solid balance of a war out there while also, you know, being a fun game to play. I think that's often what a lot of Battlefield fans want, is that all-out warfare, right? They definitely marketed that on their actual reveal event, and I'd say they know their audience off of it. But there's more that they're going after as well here. Other mainstream FPS titles, mainly Call of Duty, but others included in that, clearly they're going after this market as well. Many people are specifically talking about the COD fans and how them creating the game and catering for that is ruining the game. Many of you guys may have seen the video that went viral where I was taking a look at one of those COD players coming over and utilizing the movement. Not only the bunny hops, but there was an actual glitch in the game that you could slide into a mantle off of an edge that would essentially give you a super momentum boost that you can then chain bunny hops even further through. I don't think that was necessarily intentional. Maybe the base bunny hop was. Obviously, it is a momentum-based system, but nonetheless, that allows for people to really take the game to another level on the movement aspect in combination with the slide jump. They did get rid of things like the tack sprint. It's not fully omnidirectional movement. You can't sprint sideways, etc. But it's definitely got some movement tech, and maybe even more than intended, that players are utilizing. Those people then that I see commenting outraged at the Call of Duty people, I think are then frustrated that the developers are trying to cater to those audiences instead of them, giving them more big maps, more vehicles, more warfare, wanting in a lot of cases more recoil for guns. But Battlefield is creating something that is essentially an alternative for Call of Duty, where you've still got domination, your classic 3 points you capture, but now instead of being concrete lanes that you never change, you can blow the map up. But is that enough for those type of players to actually come over? Is that just a gimmick opening up those lanes? A lot of them probably like those lanes because they know the key spots, lanes to hold, etc., especially for competitive play. In the same regard, not every lane is actually openable, and knowing those destruction spots to bring things down or open up new lanes is also a skill and something that probably people would be compelled by. Even having streaks essentially in this game in a way, with Assault being able to pop that ultimate where they can hear through walls, somewhat see through them, Recon being able to pop a UAV, depending on which specialization tree that you take into you with the game. Granted, it's not necessarily based on an actual kill streak, but rather the amount of points that your team, your squad individually is actually getting, working together. Medics dropping meds, engineers repairing stuff will give your overall whole squad points that allow you to call in that ultimate more times, if you even want to call it that. And once the game is out, we're going to have more different specialization trees available, so you can take a different option if you're playing an engineer, if you're on the close quarters map versus if you're playing with vehicles. But they're kind of starting appealing to those COD fans. Granted, I think a lot of them would prefer a full kill streak where you're actually in a chopper gunner. And to me, I'm kind of surprised no game, honestly, has really ever contended to a high degree with Call of Duty system. Call of Duty always just copies everything from everybody else. Nobody copies that from COD. And it is fun to get those kill streaks, not necessarily that they even need to do it here or have it be a thing. I'm just surprised it hasn't been done. But they are going for an appeal to that fast respawn, modes with tighter, more specific lanes, where you don't necessarily have to worry about somebody across the entire map, 1,000 meters away, sniping at you, or up in some tower that you have to deal with. And historically, I can tell you at least firsthand, Battlefield was not for everybody. A lot of us that played Battlefield enjoyed getting up in those towers and sniping 200 to 300,000 meters away, going for the longest snipe. In the beta here, the longest range that we really saw was 200 meters, although I did see one guy going out into the distance with a helicopter who would hop out and would have 10 seconds to snipe from 500 meters away and then get back in and get out. Nonetheless, even on peak, it was kind of like a 2 main lane system. You could go down by the slope off on the side of the canyon, north side, but we didn't see like another tunnel going through the actual mountain itself with more lanes. And I've seen tons of FPS fans, from Counter-Strike to Siege to Escape from Tarkov, all hopping on this game, trying it out. And a lot of these communities showing interest, if not even online playing, streaming, talking about it during the beta. And I think less of those communities were probably criticized, not as much as Call of Duty, but I do think Battlefield is trying to appeal to as many people as they possibly can. Even with how they approached the beta, the differences between closed and open weapon playlists, they really only had one playlist that was designed for closed weapon, where the weapon that's meant for that specific class, like SMGs for engineers or snipers for recon, was only available for that class in the closed playlist. That wasn't really explained very well, especially if you were a new player coming on for the first time. It was really just like, the main way to play is open weapons. You could use whatever weapons you want on classes, but there's an extra benefit to choosing the right one, where if you're playing that engineer with an SMG, you get tighter hip fire. That's the extra benefit, but you could still run that SMG as a recon, put down the tugs, pop your UAVs, play a close range recon if you want to. And I think having those additional options, the reason that they're keeping that and probably pushing it as hard as they are with that, is it just opens up the game to more players by having it. If you are a player who really enjoys sniping, you want to have two weapons, you could play an assault and do a carbine, kind of close range submachine gun build with the M4, and then at the same time, you could have that sniper rifle as your secondary, even though you're playing assault. If you want to be running around with that SMG, popping UAVs nonstop and playing aggressive, you could do that as a recon, even have the C4 to blow open walls. I think that makes the game, again, more broadly appealing, especially if you're playing like a domination mode. Maybe you don't even like playing engineer. You don't want to have an RPG. You don't want to have a repair tool because there's nothing to even repair. Technically, you could repair the walls that support's putting down, but who wants to do that, especially with the pace of play here? It then also makes it appear that there's more weapons, especially back in Battlefield Hardline, for example. Not only did they have restrictions for classes for weapons, but they also had restrictions on which faction you were on, whether you were a comp or robber, which weapons you could use until you used it enough and unlocked a weapons license. And then it made it so there was more weapons, but before that, it felt really limited on what you could actually use. Maybe they're trying to avoid some of that effect as well. But that's not it, because they're also going to be appealing to the Battle Royale fans. We've only, at this point, as of recording this, heard that something during the actual reveal is coming to Labs first. I saw some posts on X from community managers saying that it is Battle Royale coming to Labs first. That's going to be the first time that we see it. Labs is the test environment for Battlefield, where if you want to, you could sign up and try to test the game early. It's all under NDA, so you can't reveal or talk about any of those things. They've been doing that, for example, for the last 5 to 6 months with Battlefield to hopefully give it the best possible chance at launch that it has, iron out as many of the problems before it actually is public for everybody. But I have seen a lot of people in my own comments, especially I come from a big Battlefield background. There's a lot of people that are not even interested and, in fact, disappointed by the fact that Battlefield is creating a Battle Royale. We saw this kind of already play out a couple of years ago with Halo. When Halo Infinite came out, a lot of people were saying, no Battle Royale there, no Battle Royale, and they didn't do it, right? Albeit it does seem that more Battlefield players are interested, from what I can tell, in a Battle Royale than the typical Halo player, potentially, as these franchises are at least historically more similar. Probably they have more crossover players. I myself enjoy playing both, although I've taken extended breaks from COD and extended breaks from Battlefield over too long of a time here, been alive. But I think the disappointment comes from creating a Battle Royale takes a tremendous amount of resources, especially if you're actually going to execute on it well. Battlefield has already done a Battle Royale, for example, back with Firestorm. And you can say there was a bunch of problems where, yes, you had to actually buy the game, which was a steep price point for Battlefield 5 if you just wanted to play a Battle Royale, but it also was not well updated, and even off of the launch was very slow to play, had a lot of really cool destruction, and the design was epic, but the gameplay was lackluster, and then there was no content that came for it. And they had to spend most of the time fixing it, and even that they barely did. And that was with people paying for it. If you are going to do a full, all-out focus on creating a Battle Royale, you need to have a lot of frequent content, balancing patches, as well as typically creating something on the side of competitive, which is another whole area that I've seen resistance from, where it's like Battlefield really is not a competitive game. There has been quite a few competitions in the past, a lot that I wasn't even aware of. I don't really follow much competitive gaming as a whole, but even back in Battlefield 4, heck, I even saw one in 2042 in a great video I watched recently from Slogs, going over the whole history of that game. I had no idea. I kind of want to go back and play the old games at this point now from that. Nonetheless, if you look at most of these other BRs that likely players would be coming over from, of Apex Legends, very competitive. PUBG, they went into a giant esports wing. Even COD with the World Series of Warzone. This is something that does appeal to BR fans, and if they're going to create, they will definitely at least want a leaderboard, which is something Battlefield has done in the past, and likely would be a good place to start, but likely will also want some type of ranked environment or competitive environment or competitions. Going from a multiplayer game to a BR, Warzone obviously has done the best job of this really so far, especially with the initial launch of Warzone. Maybe that was additionally helped with the timing of the world, but the game definitely has a lot of players. And of course, Byron Beatty coming over from that to work on Battlefield directly with his work in Warzone and everything there, it makes sense that this is the direction, especially from everything that we've heard. The game's trying to get 100 million players. Supposedly, at least, this will be a free-to-play thing, which would make sense this time, especially after the previous Firestorm. But Battle Royale definitely will need its own balance. Imagine even if it has vehicles in there, usually time to kills and health pools are much higher, especially when you have so much at stake with one life modes. And I do think in a perfect world, it really would be great to have everything in one. I think Fortnite is one of the best encapsulations of this. They really have so many different sub-communities within their game, even from build to no build on it now. They have the entire survival side, all of the custom modes and worlds that they can create. They now have so many different sub-communities and millions of players. The ways that you can actually play that game is quite absurd if you really haven't been following it. Similar to really how Roblox and Minecraft do things, but even if you were just looking within the Battlefield community, you have people that play each of the classes that do like the smaller maps, infantry only, or the vehicle only, the jets, the flying only, the air superiorities, the hardcore, the normal, clearly the closed playlist weapons, the conquest enjoyers, the rush enjoyers. There's a lot of communities even within that. If they wanted to just focus for that, people would probably be disappointed if they didn't have enough content for. You also have a lot of people that are at different stages who play at different quantities. People who are nonstop grinders, others who hop on much more casually, which probably is more of the players historically for Battlefield, who again like this more niche, different aspect of a game. You're not going out and playing COD, you're going and playing Battlefield. It's a different experience. Even just having the ballistic system, I remember for me back in Battlefield 3 was so different. You actually had to deal with lead and drop. Now that's even in COD. Most games have that now. It's not really as much of a differentiator for Battlefield anymore. So that brings me back then to who is this game for? Something that I've talked about a lot, especially recently, is that there's just so many different micro communities, even within every single game now, even with communities online and different streams or YouTube videos or TikToks. And like, there's just so many different sub communities of a bigger one that we really didn't have that extent of. Games were a lot more mainstream back in the day because also we just had less options, even though there was a lot of sub communities within them, whether they're snipers or rushers or whatever, right? And within those games, there is such a large audience. I think this is what it means where you're not going to please everybody. I find the same thing even with my YouTube channel and the content that I make. But this is also why I'm always very interested when a game is coming out and finding out who is it that they're actually trying to design the game for in the first place from their own words. And I think most games don't really say that, kind of understandably, because they don't want to lose out on other people who might be interested in the game. But I think this is where the games often lose some of their actual identity, which is a topic that I've seen brought up over and over again in this, where it just feels like a game is just another generic shooter that people are making because it's not going after just one thing that it's trying to nail really well. That a lot of times now, even indie devs are going after to try and find those little micro communities and make a game that really is very targeted. Even BattleBit tried to do this with Battlefield, making this big destruction, mass player count. They gave you proximity chat. Like, that game really is sick. Apparently that's going to have another update. Maybe we'll have to check it out again soon. But it seems like most of the games now, especially at the AAA level, understandably, really just want to make the game for as many people as possible. Because, of course, you want to make as much money as possible. But then if you try to serve too many audiences at once, inevitably it's not going to be enough for any of them to really like it enough. If you're trying to take the Call of Duty community, but you're appealing to, other players, well, the player who wants to play the Call of Duty game is just going to go play the Call of Duty game. That's solving all the problems of what they want to play or what they want to experience in a game. That's one of the reasons I think COD is so successful as it is they keep on creating the same game and so much content for it, even if it's changing here and there. For the people that are on it, you will know the difference. But if you're looking on the outside, a lot of people are like, this is the exact same game every single time. How are you buying this? The same effect probably that I look at a lot of sports games and so I'm like, this is the exact same game again. What are we doing? In a perfect world, it satisfies that original community though, right? Like with the old school Battlefield fans, I'm sure they're the loudest here. You guys want to have a good Battlefield game again? That's what we've been waiting for, is just a good Battlefield game. And then if they create more to the game that entices others to join in on it, they do spend more money. It expands the game. They get more funding. There's more opportunity. They can do bigger things even for that main game in addition to the other avenues of the game. Even if you look at the original Battlefield 1942 versus where we are at today, Clearly, there has been some massive improvements, even just looking at it graphically. Although you could say that that's true for a lot of games nowadays. That just the technology is getting better, let alone, right? Is it anything specific to them? But what this is turning into with Call of Duty and trying to go to a yearly cycle has been a problem for Call of Duty as well. They have more communities than ever, even within Battle Royale. People that like Big Map, the smaller map Respawn, both of those have their own ranked modes. With the campaign, multiplayer, zombies, heck, even the DMZ. I played through all of that. I've heard rumors of a DMZ too, the Modern Warfare Zombies, PvE open world giant zombies experience. But a lot of these individual modes get left behind, whether it's completely like DMZ is left in the dirt right now, or it's for a specific season. There's no update or nothing big for zombies, whereas the other players are getting big season updates. Usually it then takes a couple years for things to come around. For example, like they went back to boots on the ground when Black Ops 4 came out. Eventually, they just keep bringing back all the old stuff, and that's now another re-entry point off of nostalgia to bring people back into the game. I also see a lot of people saying they need to stop making games for streamers. Again, just based on the amount that people are playing, let alone the ways that they're playing. There's a lot of streamers who put in 50 hours a game to a week, and that might be a light week for them. That might be an entire month for somebody who just plays at nights or on weekends. They might not even hit 50 hours. Realistically, though, I think this is where they're going to make more money, especially if you see what Fortnite has created, especially with the creator codes. Even only making 5% of the transactions, we saw and still see creators pulling millions, even within a month, off of this creator code. You can only then imagine how much money the games are making, even because you have to manually put in that code and you have to manually put it in each time or each week. It doesn't just stay there. So there's got to be so many people spending outside of creator codes. The point is, they're going to continue to follow where the money is for game development. Often having those communities of people that are still playing the game, even if it's led by creators or even if it's not creators, even within Battlefield, there's been servers that have just been run by smaller communities over the years because you used to have to buy servers in Battlefield 3 and 4. They'd run continuous servers and communities there that really helped keep the game alive. But then there are people that just want the game to be created for the absolute most casual person, not appealing to new audiences, not expanding the game, and just keeping it with that small little niche game that it used to be. And, maybe not even that small. But I think this has been a big shift that all of the big games are trying to capture and become the next big Fortnite, right? They got to go for the moon. Even Splitgate, right? They were saying they're going to completely change FPS space and take over the world. Battlefield, at least, though, doesn't really create a lot of video games, especially in the last decade. We had 2042 4 years ago. Before that, we had Battlefield 5, and the cadence that they ever released their games on was a 2-year cycle. So every other year was really the fastest, at least in my time playing it, that they ever released games. And even when 2042 came out, they even removed campaign completely to focus on this larger scale 128 player thing that they're going after. We're going all out big warfare, focusing only on multiplayer, and then we get a game that's not done, doesn't have a scoreboard, doesn't have VoIP, keybind changes don't work. Like, the game's not done, Portal's not done, and this is what they released to everybody. This is one of the reasons that people are saying, no pre-orders. Let's wait and see what they actually deliver this time. Can they actually deliver the game and what we want to see here? So, okay. That's a bit of, the concerns, the extended version of it, and the different audiences that they're clearly going after, and a lot that they're having to juggle. So what is the good news that I mentioned? Well, I would say the beta went relatively well. There's definitely a lot of people who were satisfied from what they were seeing. The performance was good. There was some exploits that people used, some bugs of tanks launching in the air, but you could go in and play a game of Battlefield, have some crazy destruction, and have a good time. They showed us way more content in this beta than we have ever seen in a beta before, and that's also with an insane player count, and also from way more hype than really I anticipated, especially with the amount of backlash that was already out there prior to this reveal. Like, the positivity around this was really surprising for me. I think they did make a lot of solid moves, one of those being that you couldn't pre-order the game to even get into the beta. It was all free both weekends, the whole time, minus the very beginning with the early access. But even for that, they made it so if you even signed up for Battlefield Labs to get into their testing program in the past, you got in. Even if you didn't get into Labs, you got into the beta here. So they're giving it to the people that are like, the hardcore fans. And still, tons of people managed to get in through all the ways that they were building up communities, even from the streamers, giving out codes through drops, as well as the other partners and stuff that they have. And things were missing. We didn't have like the inspect animations, training areas for vehicles, even like the progression for unlocking wasn't really there. Although it was in the game, you couldn't really track it very well just from playing. But it seems like that's close enough that they could polish those things and have something available for launch. Will the other maps be there? And I think the real thing is, will the portal mode be there? Because I think this could be the solution that really solves almost all of this. It's a big ask, but this isn't just about making a custom defibrillator-only conquest mode, right? The idea of Portal, for those that don't know, is kind of like Halo's Forge mode or Fortnite's Unreal Engine editor, at least potentially to a degree, but you can make your own custom modes. You can make your own custom rules. If you want to be a hardcore player in Battlefield, you can create your own server for hardcore. You can put it on a list that anybody can go through a server browser for and see. That is going to be in the game. You can set up your own map, get full XP like you would from playing the actual game, and set up a 24/7 big map only if you want to do that. Or if you want to do a close range maps, sure. Squad deathmatch, domination rotation only, by all means, set up a server for it. If you like all of your closed weapons and you're outraged that the open weapons is even out here, you can have every single option, every single setting set for closed weapon, but normal default settings, rules for rush, hardcore, whatever. Full combinations. All the complaints with how you want to play can be solved right here within a community. The question is, for me, will it work? It does seem like server browser is going to be there at launch, which to me tells me portals will be there. Maybe not the full functionality of it. How deep is that functionality going to be? We saw a map editor with the Godot system, if that's even how you say it, but you can actually go in and fully customize maps. So that same extent, if you could go in and create your own Operation Metro, you could create more giant maps to play on. You could really have the full all-out warfare experience. People could maybe even recreate Call of Duty maps on a smaller scale. The limitations are almost endless with this concept, but if the tools aren't big enough or expansive enough, you wouldn't be able to actually then do that or create it. I will say, after going back to 2042 and playing Portal there, I was genuinely surprised with how deep it actually is. You could do like full coding in that with, it was just way over my head to even figure it out. I was even just trying to figure out, how do I unlock the B-2 bombers for anybody in the game by default, which there is a way to do it, but I couldn't figure it out. And there's so few people that have even been playing this game that are utilizing that it could be a similar thing with this as well, where maybe they have a lot of the tools, but people don't ever create it, especially if you don't have something like a creator code to then create the communities around it. If there were people who were knowledgeable enough to create an Operation Metro and receive some type of creator code, make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars off of the people that are playing this map, maybe they can hire more teams within that. Bring other people onto their team to then help create more of the maps all within this game. And you see how this community can expand within that very quickly. But if it's just individuals trying to spend the time on it, it takes a lot of time. It takes months to even figure out. People don't even have the time or the know-how to do it. If the developers aren't even doing it, then it can also turn into a very different story. And I'm sure there's going to be new problems that also arise out of Portal. Although I think they probably learned quite a few lessons from the first time they did it. For example, they had a zombies mode come out that I even helped create when 2042 first came out, but you could get full XP on it. And the way that attachments unlocked in that game was based off of player kills, not off of XP even in the first place. So if you got 500 kills, you'd max a gun out or whatever the number was. And so people were maxing out guns in like a couple of games on my game, essentially ruining the entire progression. They had to turn it off. And versus if it was like an XP system where you got 10 XP for each kill or whatever. They've solved a lot of that now, where now you even get moderate XP or even restricted XP. But this could go even further, because even for those Battle Royale fans that want to come in, and I don't even know if this is going to be a thing, I've never heard any confirmation of this, but how cool would it be if we could do a Portal editors for a Battle Royale? I've wanted this for so long, even on Warzone, but I can't even get the most basic tool of even just kicking somebody out of the game, or if they're banned on my account, if I block them, they can still join my game freely, ruining all of our crazy games that we do on that. We do zombies, we do death races, and it's crazy what we've been able to accomplish despite all the tools that they give us there. But what we could do as a community here on this game would be insane. So I do think there is some good news here. With the server browser coming, with the portal mode coming, and even with what they are delivering here already, I know I'm going to have a very good time for at least another 50 or 100 hours. I've already put a ridiculous amount of time into the beta alone, and the game doesn't necessarily have to even be a 1,000-hour grinder for me to have a good time on it. There's plenty of games that I've played for less time that I've had a great time playing. So I'm going to continue to keep my expectations actually low for the launch of this game, with the hope that these things could come. And fortunately, we are getting a campaign this time as well. But I really think it's going to come down to who the players are, because I've also seen a lot of people say to the same extent, just another Battlefield game coming out. What's everybody so excited for? I've never even been interested in Battlefield in the past. But that's, I think, exactly what a lot of people are also very excited about. My biggest frustration from the whole beta itself, both weekends, was not being able to just play what I wanted to when I wanted to. And even the custom search that was introduced on the second weekend really didn't even work, not consistently at least. Then when I was trying to even do the final mission of 15 attacks on the rush or breakthrough side, I kept trying to even just queue into that. I couldn't even get a game to load. And when I did, I kept getting on defense, so I'd have to keep backing out. Like, ultimately, I'm just excited to see another Battlefield game coming out that does feel like another Battlefield for me. I've played a lot of these games since Battlefield 3, and I'm curious where you guys are at with this. Are you a brand new player coming over? I've seen quite a few that have finally shown interest in Battlefield for the first time with this launch. So maybe we will get a lot of new players, new funding, new interest in this game. That next Battlefield that comes out very well might be that next expansion. This being the re-coring of the game, figuring out what that core is, and then starting to build off of. Maybe they add the building system, the trenched system that they added in Battlefield 5. Maybe they go back and create another big 128 map in the future. Maybe we get that focus on a Titan mode once again that was lost in 2142. And ultimately, we will see who these guys are actually creating the game for once it is out. But I've heard a lot of talk on games losing their identity, and hopefully this makes sense in your heads as much as it does mine in what that means. If you have any other insight, let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see more content from me. I'm live every weekday. Give it a like if you enjoyed it for the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Stonemount64, over and out.